Adam is 50 years old. His home hasn't moved in 4 months. The engine died in October, and towing it costs more than he makes in a month. But in Barrie, Ontario, a dead engine doesn't just strand him, it puts a target on his roof. Because in cities across North America, a vehicle that can't drive gets tagged for seizure before anything else on the street. Thousands of seniors live this math now, in RVs that won't move again. The question was never whether the engine turns over, it's whether the person inside survives long enough to be seen. Adam's RV used to move. Now it sits in the same gravel corner of a parking lot, snow banked up against the tyres. 2 small dogs, Farah and Blue, tied to a leash that runs back through the side door. He calls the stalled engine his biggest problem, but the truth underneath that is colder. To most cities, a parked RV is not a home. A dead engine, a lapsed registration, a body panel gone to rust. Any one of those gets a vehicle marked inoperable, and inoperable vehicles get towed first, occupied or not. In California, a law on the books lets a city declare an RV abandoned and destroy it after 30 days sitting in a tow yard, once the vehicle is valued at $500 or less. A dead engine alone is usually enough to hit that number. So the seniors living in these RVs are stuck inside a trap. Fix the engine and the repair bill eats the money that was supposed to cover food and propane for the month. Leave it broken and the county can crush the only shelter they own for the cost of hauling it away. Lawmakers have started to notice. A bill introduced in the California legislature would raise that towing threshold from $500 to $4,000, specifically because the current number sweeps up the exact RVs that tens of thousands of people use as last resort shelter. Whether it passes or not, the fact that it had to be written at all tells you how thin the line is. Winter doesn't wait for a bill to pass. Adam says heating the RV through the cold months is the hardest part of living in it, along with keeping the water lines from freezing solid overnight. There's no running engine left to power a heater off of, so the heat comes from small propane canisters bought a few at a time. A kettle boiled just to warm his hands around it. Blankets stacked 3 deep on the bunk, and 2 dogs curled against his legs. Because body heat is free, and propane isn't. On the coldest nights, the water tank freezes anyway, and thawing it back out becomes its own 2-hour chore before anyone can make coffee. And propane brings its own risk. In West Vancouver, an 83-year-old man named Robert lost his RV to a fire that started while he was inside it and escaped only because a passerby banged on the door in time. His sister said it plainly afterward. The motorhome wasn't just a way to get around, it was his whole life, and it went up with the flames. Heat is not optional in these vehicles. It is also never fully safe. Farther south, in an industrial stretch of unincorporated Los Angeles County, plumbing is the problem, not the cold. Over 500 RVs sit parked along 2 boulevards there, and most of them don't have a working toilet. One resident, Erin Echevarria, put the situation plainly. Nothing works. Not the restrooms, not the sewers, not the trash pickup. People end up dumping waste onto the ground because there's nowhere else for it to go. And in the summer heat, the smell settles over the whole stretch of road and doesn't lift. A home with no engine and no plumbing is still technically a home. It just costs the person inside their dignity to keep living in it. Food is its own quiet emergency. No engine means no fridge that stays cold for long. A block of ice bought at a gas station lasts a day, maybe two if the cooler is packed right. So the diet shrinks to what won't spoil: canned soup, crackers, peanut butter, whatever a food bank hands out that week. Fresh food is a luxury measured in hours, not days. Adam feeds his dogs before he feeds himself most nights. That's not a detail for sympathy, it's just the order the math forces. Isolation stacks on top of all of it. A senior parked alone in a lot outside town isn't near a library, a senior centre, or a bus line that runs more than twice a day. Days pass with no conversation longer than a wave through the windshield. The quiet is its own weather system, always there, never breaking. Depression creeps in the way the cold does, slowly, and by the time anyone notices, the person hasn't left the vehicle in a week. Loneliness doesn't show up on a code enforcement report, but it's often the thing that breaks someone before the weather does. That cost lands hardest on the body. A senior on a fixed income can't out-earn a repair bill on a dead RV engine and can't outwalk the distance to a shelter bed when the closest one is already full, which it usually is. Cold makes arthritis worse. Bad sleep makes memory worse. A body that's 70 or 80 years old doesn't bounce back from a week of freezing nights the way a younger one does. And a minor cough that would pass in a heated apartment can turn into pneumonia inside an RV with no working furnace. So the vehicle stops being a shelter of choice. It becomes the only shelter left. One door, one lock, one place where, tonight at least, nobody else gets to decide where a senior sleeps. The condensation on the inside of the windows freezes into a thin sheet of frost by morning. Adam scrapes it off with a plastic card before he can see out. Small chore every single day. Here's the strangest part. The one detail that actually separates the RVs that survive from the ones that get crushed. And it has nothing to do with the engine. Cities like Portland have started running RV safe parks, lots where a person can leave a dead vehicle in place, legally, while they get connected to real housing help instead of a tow order. Los Angeles County built a similar pathway after its RV encampments grew past 1,000 people living in them. The trick residents have learned, the one that actually works, is getting their name onto one of those lists before code enforcement ever tags the vehicle. Because the same broken down RV means two completely different things depending on which side of that list it lands on. Tagged one way, it's an abandoned vehicle headed for auction and a crusher. Logged the other way, it's somebody's home. And the county now has to help move that person into something better, instead of just hauling the shell away. Adam doesn't have a fixed engine, and probably won't for a while. What he does have now is a caseworker who knows his name and his lot number. It sounds like a small thing, a name on a list, but it's the difference between being processed as junk and being treated as a person who happens to be living in something that used to run. Federal researchers don't even have a firm number for how many people live this way. RVs and campers don't fit the technical definition of vehicular homelessness that HUD uses to count the unsheltered. So a person can be living exactly like Adam and still not show up in a single national statistic. What agencies that study this do agree on is who tends to end up here. Single adults priced out of rent, families after a job loss or an eviction, Seniors who simply can't afford a lease anymore on what a pension or a fixed cheque provides. For a lot of them, the RV is the last rung before the street itself. The difference between 4 walls with a door that locks and a sleeping bag in a doorway. None of this fixes the engine. Adam still can't afford the repair, and the dogs still need somewhere warm to sleep tonight. But the seniors who make it through another season aren't the ones with the newest RV or the deepest savings. They're the ones who found the list, called the outreach worker, or learned which lot in town won't get swept before spring. Survival here isn't dramatic. It's a stack of small decisions: propane over silence, a phone call over pride, a name on a caseworker's spreadsheet instead of a plate number on a tow order. So the question worth sitting with isn't whether a 50-year-old man with 2 dogs can survive in a vehicle that doesn't run. It's why, in a country this wealthy, surviving was ever the bar he had to clear, just to keep a door he could still lock.